Welcome to the Wayne Bennett Podcast, celebrating West Virginia's people, places, and the culture of Southern Appalachia. Now here's your host, Wayne Bennett.
Welcome to the Wayne Bennett Podcast. My name is Wayne Bennett, and I'd like to give a big shout out to our buddy Jeff Graham. We go way back to softball and YMCA days, and hopefully Jeff's listening. And hey Jeff, got your buddy here with us. Our guest today is been described as the Flying Eagle fan, the greatest Flying Eagle fan of Beckley Flying Eagles, and Bob Sanger. I'm glad to have you, Bob.
Hey, glad to be here, Wayne. Thank you very much for having me. And hello, Jeff.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Bob. Where'd you grow up at?
I was born and raised right here in Beckley. Lived at Callaway Heights. I actually lived in Crab Orchard for a couple of years, and they bought our house. The state did when they built the 4-lane through Crab Orchard. So then we moved in with my mom's parents at Callaway Heights, and I lived there till I was 16. Had a great childhood. A lot of sports, a lot of bicycle and motorcycle riding, and then later on we moved to Morgan Hills, and that's where I lived when I graduated Woodrow.
Where'd you go to grade school?
First 2 years I went to Teal Elementary.
That's where my wife went to grade school.
Cool. Then they shut it down after my second grade, and I went to Central.
And you say you played some sports. Did you play any at the school or?
Yeah. I played at Central. Made the team as a third grader, and of course we went to sixth grade then, and we had some good teams. Then I played in junior high, and it seemed like all the other kids grew by the time I got to high school, and I was the littlest guy in class, and kind of resorted to being a manager on the basketball and football team. I played on the tennis team.
This was in high school? This
was in high school. Yeah, I played basketball and ran track in junior high.
Who was your coach in elementary school?
Vaughn York.
Vaughn York, really?
Yes, loved Vaughn. He
coached a lot of different sports, basketball, football, and he was a heck of a baseball player too. You know, when he was growing up, and played some at Concord College. And what about Little League? Did you play Little League baseball?
Played a Little League baseball. Played for had minor and major league. Cubs was our major league team, and made the all-star team. We played our districts in Hinton, and we never made it out of the districts.
Who were some of the better players on that team? You remember?
I don't remember. A lot of that's due to my accident I had 4 years ago that okay. I should have left this world, but thank the Lord I'm still here, and a lot of memory issues, and some of it goes back to that.
Now, when you got into high school, you say you didn't grow much, and so you instead of playing, you became a manager in football and basketball.
Yes. So
you got to be the manager for Joe Hicks.
Yes. And
you got to be a manager for Jackie Robinson.
Yes.
And man, those experiences right there.
And Preach Wiseman.
Preach Wiseman too.
Yeah, Preach's last year was my sophomore year.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
Well, I know there's things you can't tell about those guys, but as a manager, you got to see a lot of behind-the-scene incidents and how things were handled, and all of those guys were great coaches and great athletes, actually. And Joe had even when he left here, and he ended up at Pulaski High School, and that's when I was coaching at Park, and we played Bluefield the third game of the year, and Pulaski Junior High always played them the first or second game, and Joe would always send me films of Bluefield. So when we got to play Bluefield the third game, we was usually always prepared. We didn't always beat them because they were solid, but we were prepared. Joe was always kind of helping us out. And then I'd run into him every once in a while at some of these races. He ran a lot. Mm-hmm. And he kind of kid one day, he said, I've done about everything I want to do, but one more thing. I'd like to coach golf, high school golf.
Wow.
And I could imagine him coaching golf.
Oh, I know.
Doing push-ups and running and that kind of stuff. But now, so that was a lot of work, managing football and basketball.
It was. I wanted to be around the sport. Like I said, very small. I think I was like 4'11", 93 pounds as a sophomore, and was only 5'7", 115 when I graduated.
Now, you said you tried wrestling one year, didn't you?
I did. I tried my sophomore year, and Greg Hara was defending state champ, and I hurt a lot after practices, and I didn't continue that.
Yeah, Greg had, even as a senior, they had a 98-pound class, and he wrestled 98 pounds as a senior in high school. I remember I was assistant coach then, and he came down from like 120 pounds, very devoted kid, and it was just one of them weird years. His senior year, everybody had a real good 98 pounder, and he had some tough luck in the state tournament. But he was a good kid, good. And he's in the Raleigh County Wrestling Hall of Fame, and I figured Greg could probably wrestle a little bit now. What about when you were in high school? What about who were some of the teachers or adults you looked up to?
Linda Zorio, she was one of my favorites. She also lived down the street, but I always enjoyed her and her class. She made school fun. She made school, you wanted to come back. Matter of fact, when I was a senior and we got out a couple weeks early, there was days that I would go back just to sit in her classroom because I missed going to school.
Wow.
I really enjoyed school. I enjoyed people, still do. Just
well, they called her Mrs. Z. Some people did. She taught like psychology.
Psychology, yes.
Yeah. And she was there when I was teaching. She was very well thought of. I never heard anybody say anything negative about her.
No.
And now
Miller Hall was another one. Miller was there when I was there, and Parham, Coach Parham, really enjoyed his biology classes.
He was a good teacher. Also, he was always working. We went to a football clinic one time in Myrtle Beach, and on the way down, we had to stop beside this cotton field. He wanted to get a plant out of the field to use for his biology class, and so we waited on him, but he didn't get shot or anything. Now, and you graduated in 1970. Well, tell me about Preach Wiseman. What was your first impression of Preach? Yeah.
I just he had this aura about him. It wasn't that he demanded respect. It's just you gave him respect. The players had a great team when I was a sophomore. We got beat. I think it was Barbersville beat us in the semifinals. And I can say it since Preach is no longer with us. We had the ball in the fourth quarter. I don't know if it was tied or we were behind one. Well, Preach calls timeout, and we don't have any left. Oh yeah. So they get to shoot a technical and get the ball, and ended up losing by 4. I think it was something like that. So
that was tough.
That was tough.
Well, he had, of course, I can remember when they had the 1962 team that went undefeated. I was 12 years old and used to go watch some of their games, and actually the Sunday after they won the state championship and finished the season undefeated with Barksdale and Surratt and Samala and Hinesley and those guys, they had a gathering at the Armory, and it was packed. I mean, people just it was just kind of a cheering type thing, and they had an ice show there, and they had to put boards and stuff out on the ice so the guys could walk out there and sit, because the ice rink took up the whole bottom there, and it was But then later on, I got to follow Flying Eagles, but that's back when Richwood was AAA school and Golly Bridge, and they played teams like them. And Richwood had guys like Milroy Brothers, and Golly Bridge had a guy named Steve Spicer, and of course Mullins had Mike D'Antoni and all them guys. I mean, they were all. Mike D'Antoni was the first basketball player I ever saw in a game dribble between his legs. I never had seen that before.
Wow.
And we're talking late 60s,
Yeah.
you know, and it's the first one I'd ever seen do that in a ball game. And he actually playing Beckley, and Beckley dropped off in a zone, and he walked up the court dribbling a ball between his legs as he's bringing it up. And everybody was like, wow, I've never seen anything like now they do it anytime, you know. But now when you graduated in 77, now, you weren't the manager when they won the state championship. They won the next season.
Correct.
What'd you do after you got out of high school?
I was working some at, it was Ashworth Suzuki back then. I loved motorcycles and cars about like I did sports. Then I had a couple other jobs, worked at Nationwide Auto Parts, and then I kind of stayed in the motorcycle industry up till I was in my 30s. About 30 years old. And then I got into cars as a service manager at a couple of local dealerships.
Now, when you worked motorcycles, did you work on them or sell them or what, or both, or
both? Mainly mechanicked on them. I enjoyed that, and I still do a little bit. Physically, I can't do much with my shoulder issues, but I really enjoyed that. My dad was a mechanic growing up, and he had a gas station, and so I guess he's the one that passed on the love of sports and playing, and the love of mechanics.
Where'd he have a gas station?
In Crab Orchard.
At Crab Orchard.
It was a Amoco station. They tore it down, or they bought it from my grandpa and him in the late 50s, because they tore it down to build the road. The new it's not a new 4-lane, but the 4-lane that runs through Crab Orchard now.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny. My brother and my dad had a filling station there in Crab Orchard, and it's called Bennett Brothers Golf, and Paul Prince took it over after they left.
Right, and Dad and Paul were like big buddies.
And that's back when I guess they had a station there about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, I'm not sure. But back then, people got gas on credit, and it was hard to make any money.
I know.
I think it's people still owe them some money.
Probably. I'll ask Dad, because he'll remember. He remembers everything.
Well, I know I used to go over there on Saturdays and help wash these Mr. T Donut trucks. They had a contract with them washing them trucks, and then I know Buster Jones' dad had a bunch of Indian motorcycles and stuff across the street, and they worked on them all the time. But there was a lot going on at that time. Red Spencer had a garage right up the road from there, and all them guys had race cars over at Prosperity. My brother had one, Red Spencer and them had one. Of course, Frank and Paul Prince.
Sure.
And everybody had cars, and I think they raced on Sundays sometimes, and sometimes they raced on Fridays, and it was a lot of fun. But I never did. I think the washing vehicles every Saturday kind of turned me off on that. It was about my taste of it. But also, though, during your professional life, you've done a lot of coaching with youth coaching.
Yes, I have. I coached in the late 80s when Jeff was the program director at the YMCA, speaking of Jeff Graham. I needed to pick up a second job, needed to get some bills paid, and Jeff said, well, I need somebody to work at the Y in the evenings. So when I got off work at Beckley Honda, I'd go to the Y and work in the evenings. And of course, working there, couldn't believe you got paid to be around sports all the time. So started coaching there, and really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, and coached a lot of the kids that ended up going through Woodrow and won state championships. Like, Ryan and Shay played there, and Brian Wheeler and Jamel Bradley and Tamar. And you'd build a rapport with these kids, and it was kind of like they were part of your family.
Mm-hmm.
You'd see them during the week, and then you'd coach on Saturdays usually. And then that led into when my daughter was born in 90, when she was 5, she wanted to play T-ball. So I started coaching then. And then when my grandchildren came along, I started coaching, and it just kind of reciprocated to coaching at the Y, coaching at Little League, coaching all-starter teams at Little League, coaching middle school baseball. Then I coached elementary basketball and coached Summit Upward in their basketball leagues, and just really enjoyed it. Just build something with those children, and that, as of today, I'll see them out, and you're the same way because you coached, a long time in your life, and it feels neat when they call you coach or call you Bobby, or I enjoy that. I love being around kids.
Yeah, and it just seems like everywhere you go, you run into somebody.
Everywhere.
You've had to do. Even a couple of times when I worked at the Y, we had to discipline the kids occasionally, and even a couple that I disciplined, I still run into now, and they hug you and everything.
Oh, I know.
And kind of part of the raising. I mean, just
It is.
discipline is part of sports.
It really is. And a lot of them needed a father figure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I enjoyed that. I mean, and we've lost a couple kids in the last year that I had coached, mainly Aiden Sheehan.
Uh-huh.
The kid that was killed in an automobile accident. He was on our middle school baseball team, and loved him to death. I mean, just super good kid. Dwayne Richardson, super good kid. Just, you hate to see those things happen to the,
you
to the
do.
young.
And it's tough, especially if you're coaching at the time and something happens, But now I understand your interest in cars, and you got a Camaro when you were a senior in high school, or did you just graduate? Or?
I had just graduated and got it that August.
What model's that?
It's a '69 Camaro Z28.
In mint shape?
Yes, sir.
Do you show it?
Yes, sir.
You're not going to turn loose of it, are you?
No, I don't plan on it.
That's another thing, car shows. I mean, I've got a father-in-law that loves car shows, and he goes to about every one he can go to. And of course, you see a lot of the same people, but it's kind of a good fellowship,
It is. It really is. It's good, clean fun. I try to go to one or two that's 50, 60 miles away every year, just so I can drive. This year I drove up to Talcott. They have a car show at John Henry Days.
Up there. And
love that. Been to Lewisburg, been to White Sulphur. Try to go different places, Summersville, Fayetteville.
Now, you played quite a bit of softball, too, in the day.
Several thousand games, probably.
How'd you get involved in that?
I loved the game of baseball, and it seemed like that there wasn't much baseball once you were out of high school, unless you were on West Virginia Glass Industrial League team. They seemed to have their pick of players, and they had some great teams. Well, I started playing softball. I was still in high school, and we put together a team. Robert McGraw, I can't remember who all it was, but anyways, it was guys that we had played Little League and Babe Ruth with, and we thought, hey, we're going to go play against some older guys. We're going to be real good. I don't know if we scored the first game. So, and then it just evolved after that. Our church got in a church league out at we called it the Factory Field, out behind Beckley Plaza. They called it the factory then.
Yeah, Beckley Manufacturing.
Yeah, and then it just led into. I got to play the last year of Warren Williams. That was played with Industrial Brake. He put together a team, and we had nice uniforms. I don't think we won a lot of games, but it just became. Then it got to be like I need to play a lot, and then I got to be buddies with Jeff Graham. You know, Jeff moved everything the county moved the leagues to Fitzpatrick, and then it just amplified and was playing in 3 different leagues, playing in Oak Hill in a league, and then playing every weekend. And it just, for probably 12, 15 years, done that. And then I played up till I was in my 50s, till my grandson Andrew came along, and then that's when he was real interested in Little League. And we started at T-ball and then moved on up to, Pony League minors and majors. And so then I got to coaching and then didn't have time to play. I wanted to do that.
Yeah, the last year that they had, the city ran the softball league for a while. And the last year that they had softball at Warren Williams, actually, I won't say who the mayor was at that time, but he was trying to get rid of softball. And Fred Persinger and I, and with Jeff's help, Jeff worked. We ran the league, and they turned the lights off on us, and the city did, and so we ended up starting at 5:30, and we played 3 games a night instead of 4, but we got it in. And then they moved the league down to Fitzpatrick, and Ernie Hinkle was a great asset down there. I mean, it was a lot of volunteer work that he did to help keep that thing going. And one year I ran the league down there and didn't work. Whatever we had left over was what I made. It was no pay or anything involved. And then I was still teaching and coaching, and we was down there 7 days a week, and then Jeff got hired by the county the next year, and he moved down there and ran the league, and it really caught on. We had state tournaments and everything. There's always a tournament around. Always. Everybody had a tournament somewhere you could find. And
they did. There was times that there would be 3 tournaments in the Beckley area.
Yeah.
Fitzpatrick, Fire Code, Pinecrest. You had your tournament.
Yeah, we had. Well, and I tell you what, I can remember the league. The open league had 30-some teams. The church league had 16. The women's had 8. The industrial league on Sunday had 8.
Yes.
And I mean, it was, if you wanted to play the game, you could play. It was really big, and they used the tournaments for fundraisers, and that was a different era, but it was a lot of fun. I got a lot of enjoyment, made a lot of friends. But you talking about the coaching, a lot of people don't know this. These guys are primarily notarized for other sports, but Tink Brown, who played basketball at Woodrow, great basketball player, and he played football for me at Park in the 9th grade. Tamar Slay was our corner and played an end in football. And I always worried about Tamar. When he was in the 9th grade, he was a little old skinny thing, man. His arms and legs wasn't bigger than nothing.
I know.
And then all of a sudden, when he left junior high, he shot up and got big, and great kids. Chris Daniels, of course, he could play about anything. You know, he was good at it.
Chris and his brother Scott was on some of our better teams at Fitzpatrick when Beckley Toyota was our sponsor. We won a couple of state championships. We had a real good church team at Beckley Church of God. We won like over 100 games in a row before we, I think, won 3 state championships in a row.
I remember that.
They had Mike Horton, the Sexton brothers, Shoops, just great team, great guys. There was a lot of talent here in Beckley. I actually had the honor, and I call it an honor because I hadn't been playing very long. and Scotty Cuthbert came up to me and said, "I'm gonna take you under my wing for a little while and we'll teach you some things about this game." And I got to play a couple of seasons with Wilkes, and that was pretty cool.
He would be a good teacher, I tell you. Scotty was tough up the middle.
And let you know about it too.
But, let's talk about Beckley basketball a little bit. When did you really? I know what you're a manager, but as a fan, when did you really get following? And
I think it all started when I was little. I mean, my dad, the Armory opened in '62. My dad carried me to that game. I don't remember any of that, but I remember when I was 6, 7, 8 years old, we went to every football game. Didn't matter home or away. He would take me in basketball games. We went to every home game, and we went to a lot of away games. Oak Hill, Mullins. Just fascinating to me to go. I remember the pep band. That's why I love to hear pep bands now. I just love that pep band music. But we went to, I think I was 8. We went to the championship game in Morgantown in '67. And then when Barksdale came, he asked me to hang around some, and I went to every. I didn't miss a game of his that I remember, home or away. He would get you involved. He would call you. Sometimes he'd holler, "Hey, Coach Sanger, do this or do that." And then if he would catch me talking to somebody else, he would discipline me like he did a player. I remember having to run ladders with the team.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And I remember getting sick from doing that. And I don't know, it was just he had that about him, the respect. But I've just always loved Flying Eagles, and I follow and I support the baseball team, the basketball, the football, the girls' sports, just everything about it. I've got a little separate closet that's all maroon at home, whether it's T-shirts like I got on or pullovers or jackets.
When Barksdale came back for basketball, I think 1990 was the first time they won the state championship when he came back.
Yes.
And that was Kevin English and Chris Daniels and Glenn Staples and that bunch. And of course, I always told Kevin English, he was a good athlete. I said, I could make a state champion wrestler out of you, buddy, but he would end up being a state champion basketball player and got him a college education out of it too.
Heck of a player.
And then that's the next year. It's when Colasurto and Fleener and those guys got in the 10th grade. They didn't win, but they played. They done lost a lot of seniors, and they played really good.
And played for the state championship. Lost by 8 to a real good Logan team.
And then when they were juniors, that's the year they beat Fairmont. Was that when they had Prickett? Yeah, and he went on to Kentucky. Is that where he went? And that was kind of an upset, considered. That's what a lot of people considered an upset, because Fairmont was always ranked number 1 and around that.
Yeah, and they were in the top 25 USA Today too.
Yeah, so that was a huge win. And then the one in '93, though, was in the semifinals, is the one I'll never forget. Because I just couldn't. I mean, when I turned the radio off, I still couldn't believe it. But that's when, after the third quarter, Brooke was ahead by 20 points, and it looked like it. And Barksdale had actually taken out the starters, hadn't he?
Yeah. Oh yes. Yes.
And the guys came in. The second string guys came in, got them back fired up a little bit, put the starters back in, and they made one of the greatest comebacks as far as I'm concerned.
Me too, and people still talk about that down there. Yeah, I remember about where I was sitting in the Civic. I was sitting with Jeff Graham, matter of fact.
Really?
And I didn't feel like we were going to lose. I did not feel that way. Wow, what a team. Stevie Ball had a heck of a game, defense and offense.
Yeah, that was good bunch of guys there. And now you've got into some ball games and you got put out of a couple games, haven't you?
Yes, sir, I have. I get that honestly from my cousin, my dad's brother, James. They call him Junior Sanger. He had a son, Johnny. Johnny graduated in '69 from Woodrow, and he could have played on basketball team. There was a few of them that just didn't play at high school. They played a lot of basketball. For some reason, they didn't play at the school, but Johnny was a heck of an athlete, and I remember going to watch him, and he was kind of like my hero, and he was a hothead. And I kind of played that way, and I still can get that way. And yeah, I've been tossed a few times. I've never cursed at them, but I apparently don't tell them what they want to hear.
You ever tried to officiate? I mean,
I did, and when people say, "Why don't you do that now?" Of course, I'm physically couldn't do it, but yes, I did back in the '80s with Jeff Graham. We started doing elementary games, and we done a state tournament for the Christian schools at the Armory. I think we done about 6 games in one day.
Wow.
And then after that, we went and done Mount Hope versus Midland Trail JV high school. So, but we were a whole lot younger then. So.
Well, I've officiated wrestling, and I've called baseball games, and done a little bit of. And I had to do basketball when I went to the Y. I had to officiate. It wasn't the open men's basketball, but it was the league they had at the Memorial Building, and I was terrible, man. Them guys looked at my whistle. Does this thing work? I said, I'm just letting everybody play.
Let them play.
But basketball's got to be the toughest sport to officiate. Even with 3 now,
yes.
It's still tough.
It would be, and I don't know why I get that way, but it's not the Christian thing to do. And I know that.
What kind of legacy would you like to leave? I mean, what do you want people to remember about Bobby Sanger?
Well, that I was, I've always said I just want people to remember I was a good guy. I have a wonderful wife, Jeannie. She's been a blessing to me. I have a wonderful daughter, 2 stepsons. We've got 5 grandchildren. I just want to be just a good guy that most people liked and most people enjoyed being around me, and I try to love and respect everybody that I can. And I want to be known as a Flying Eagle supporter. I mean, I bleed red, but it's more on the maroon side.
Well, I don't know what colors they wear all the time now. Now they've got black, and sometimes they cardinal red or gray, and
gray with it.
But it still centers around maroon and white.
Right.
But you just got to wonder. But one of the hardest lessons I ever learned when I was coaching over at Woodrow, I ordered a set of wrestling uniforms, and back then they had the leotards. They wore the bottoms and everything, and Ross Hutchins was the principal, and I had him at school at Beckley Junior High. He was football coach and assistant football coach, and then he was a guidance counselor at Woodrow, and then he was my assistant principal and then principal. And I ordered a gold stripe down the side of those leotards. It was maroon and white with a gold stripe down the side. And he called me in, and I was only making like $5,700 a year. And he said, I hope you got enough money to pay for them uniforms. And I said, me personally? And he said, yeah. And I said, no, I don't. And he said, well, we don't have gold in our colors. He said, Woodrow's colors, maroon and white. And man, I was scared to death. I was scared of him anyway, you know. And then when he said that, and I said, well, I just thought I'd add a little bit. And he said, well, don't ever do that again until you talk to me, but we'll go ahead and let you buy this time. Of course, he and I ended up being a pallbearer at his funeral. We become best friends.
I like Mr. Hutchins. He was principal when I was there.
And the thing I liked about him, he was fair. He treated everybody at the same level. It didn't make no difference. He was tough, but he treated everybody at the same level, and that's what I appreciated about him too. And like I said, we become real good friends. You know, before he'd passed away and all. Man, I wish we could talk some more, but man, we ain't even got started. Well, you're gonna have to come. You're gonna have to come back.
Will.
Okay, we'll do that. We'll do that.
Let me know. I love this.
And but the people out there, and I appreciate you coming, Bobby, and like I said, I've got a lot more questions. But people out there, if you think you want to be on the show, give me a holler at awbennett50@gmail.com, and we'll get you on here. And people, you can check us out at Facebook. Check us out and like us on Facebook. We appreciate that. Or check us out on Spotify, Google, or Podomatic, and we'd love to have you. Hope you like what we're talking about. And until next time, remember, if you're not dead yet, you're not done yet. And until then, God bless you.